Hi guys, and welcome to this week's art club. So before we begin, I'm just going to show us some pictures and have a bit of a chat, and then we'll see what's in the art pack and what we're going to make. So first, let's have a look at this. This week I am thinking about trees, and here's a lovely image from a book called Strange Trees, and it's all pictures that have been drawn of unusual trees around the world. And here's one with a girl sitting inside it, and there is something about when you see a tree, if it has a hole like that, you want to go inside and sit inside it, or maybe if it has lovely low branches, you might climb it. And there's lots of reasons why trees can be very interesting. And another week while we were talking about fairies, we actually saw this image, and it was a hawthorn tree at the Hill of Tara, where children and adults and people of all walks of life tie ribbons and cloth to the tree. And it's a message to the fairies and a wish to the fairies for good luck and good health, and as a sign of respect for them. A lot of people do this in May. It's a really special time for fairies. But what's interesting about this is, if you start to look into it, people do this kind of thing all around the world for very similar reasons. Here's a picture of a tree in England where a lady is putting a coin into its bark. And you can see, if you look closely, that there's bumps and lumps in the bark where people have been putting coins. And for hundreds of years, people have been doing it. And the idea is that you put your coin in, and then you might get some good health and good luck. Here's another one, and this is in Thailand, so in Asia, and they've wrapped some fabric around the tree, and this is a special kind of tree where they do it, and they've built a house into the tree as well, and that house and the ribbons are for a tree spirit, specific tree spirit that lives in these trees. And similarly to us with our fairies, it's a way to ask for a wish, for good health, for good things to happen, and to show respect to the tree spirit. And another one, this is in the Middle East, so another part of the world entirely, where they are tying fabric to a tree. And again, they've been asking for prayers and wishes and good things, and this tree is very special to them. And here's another one, a specific tree that people think is special, and they go to it and they leave gifts for the tree. And again, this is for not only the tree, but the spirits and the fairies and the mystical, magical things that they connect to the tree. Here's some drawings by an artist called Arthur Racken, and he thought at night that if you looked at a tree, its silhouette against the moonlight, you could kind of see the shape of a person. And I'll show you another example. There's one on the right hand side of a kind of what looks like a person in the, a tree in the shape of a person with its arms reaching up to the sky and their feet buried deep into the earth. And it almost even has a head as well. So sometimes trees have a kind of personality. Like, how about this one? This one is in Dublin, and you might have seen it before. It's at a place called Constitution Hill. And if you have a very close look, you'll see something funny is happening here. A bench that was beside the tree has been eaten by the tree very slowly. As the tree grows, it's been taking more and more of the bench with it inside it. And people call this tree the hungry tree. So trees move quite slowly, they grow quite slowly. So this has been eating this bench for tens, 20s, maybe 30 or 40 years. And here's another one. This is in Glendalough in County Wicklow. You might have been there, or you may go there one day and you might find this tree called the sitting tree. And you can see why. It's a really beautiful tree, and when people see it, they immediately just want to go and sit on that lovely low branch where it almost looks like a hammock. Like the tree is holding out its arm or its hand for you as a hammock or a bed, somewhere to sleep and rest. This tree is not so close to home. It's over in Canada, I believe. It's called the Fairy Lake tree. And it's a special tree because it's growing in the middle of this big lake, and it's not a rock that it's actually growing on, it's another tree. So there's a tree that had fallen into the water, and this tree is growing out of it. And people think it's special because it's such an unusual place to see a tree growing, and it's kind of amazing that it's surviving there. And it sticks out just in the middle of this huge, beautiful, still lake. And they call it the fairy tree because they connect it with fairies, like we might do here in Ireland. And this is a special forest. It's been going for about 80,000 years. This one's over in America, and it's basically one tree organism that's under the ground that's been sprouting up trees time after time for 80,000 years. So very ancient, very old. It's been there for such a long time, and people call this the trembling giant, which is a really cool name. I think it immediately usually makes you think of stories. The trembling giant. A lot of these trees have great names. The hungry tree, the sitting tree, the fairy lake tree, the trembling giant. And the other great thing about that is if you look at that big forest, you might start to imagine the roots underground where the trees are all having conversations with each other. They're all sending messages back and forward, sending nutrients to each other, warning if there's a fire, or maybe they're being under attack by an insect or a bug or a deer eating their leaves. They're always communicating with each other deep under the earth, which is so cool. So if you're standing in a forest and you can hear the leaves waving ahead above you and you can hear the rustling there, you might also think about all the rustling underground of these messages going back and forth between all the trees. So while I was thinking about trees, and I was thinking about how all over the world people make gifts for trees and they think about fairies and spirits that might live there in the tree, I thought, why don't we use that as inspiration for this week? So in your art pack, you will have a piece of card and a piece of wood like this that has a hole in it. You might have something like a wooden button, and there's some wooden hearts in there too. And then also you'll have some embroidery thread. So one really long piece like that, and then two shorter pieces. They might be different colors to what I have here. There's another short piece there. So get all your materials together and just put them to the side there. And what I was thinking was we could make some tree wishes. So as you can see, it's tying all the pieces together and doing some drawings and colouring in. And you might notice things like I drew my fairy that I'd made in another class. And on this one I drew a tree with lots of tree spirits and a rainbow and a night sky, and I added some stars. But what you might notice that they all have is a tassel. So this week I thought, let's learn to make a tassel and then attach everything together, and you can hang them out onto your favourite tree that might be in your garden, or it might be out while you're going for a walk and you find one in a park, or out in the woods if you're lucky to go out into the woods. So our tassel is made up of 3 parts of wool. We're going to have our very longest piece as the main part, and then you have 2 more pieces which you can just put to the side. I've got all mine in different colours just so it's easier for you to see on screen, but yours might be different colours to what I have here. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my big long piece of wool and the piece of card that's in your pack, and I'm going to come closer so you can see. I'm just wrapping the wool all the way around the card like this until I kind of come to the end. Then I'm going to get my next biggest piece, which in my case is this one here. And I'm going to thread this piece through underneath basically the yellow. So take the green that I have here, I'm going to go underneath there and then pull to the top, and I'm going to do a double knot at the top here. One and two. So that's good and secure. At this point I've got my wrapped wool and I've got another piece tied onto the top. I'm going to take this off the card and I'm going to put the card aside. I might use that later. So this is what we have. Loops of wool tied onto another piece. Now what we're going to do is create what would be kind of like what I imagine as the neck on my tassel. And this part up here is the head, which is about, let's say, half a centimetre, a centimetre. And then I'm going to take this piece, in my case it's pink, but you may have a different colour, and I'm going to wrap the wool across here. So let's have a look. Let's not worry about these bits here. So there, you can see I have got sort of like what you might imagine as your top knot with a head and the neck, and then this is the dangling loops down the bottom. Now once you've done a couple of wraps around the neck part, you can just do a double knot to secure it in place. So I'll do that here. It's a little bit fiddly, and if you need help, do ask for help, especially when it comes to knotting. And in this workshop there's a lot of doing knots and tying things together, and tying can be tricky. Okay, so you can see now what I have. There's lots of bits of wool, but the main thing is that I have got my top knot here with this piece tied on. I've got kind of the head of my tassel, the neck, and almost the legs, I imagine. And then we're going to cut this loop down here, just like that. And what that's giving us is lots of individual strands to make the tassel. Now from this point you can cut any scraggly bits that you don't want, a little bit here. I don't need this bit of pink here, so I'm going to cut that off. Just trim that. And that is the tassel ready to go. And now it's time to look at the other materials in the pack, and you will notice that there's a little wooden heart, a button, and we have a piece of wood, and each one of them has a hole in it, and that's going to help us for tying things on. Now you can tie them on in any order you decide. You might like to do them a different order to me, and today I'm just going to go with my heart first. So you can see there's the hole, and I'm going to thread the wool through like that. Just bring it down to somewhere along the wool that I want it to sit, and I'm going to just tie a knot. And there you see tassel and heart. The next one I think I'll go for will be my piece of wood, which is this here. And again, there's a hole. Might be a bit tricky to get through, so if you need to, you can slightly wet the end of the wool in between your lips like that, and that might help you just to get a better point to get through. Again, if you need to ask for help at any point, just find somebody and ask for help. These parts are kind of tricky, and this might take you a little bit of time. If you knot something on and you don't like where it is, or you want to redo it, don't be afraid to just unknot it and replace it. So there you have tassel, heart, and my piece of wood. And then I'm going to put on my button next, and this is hard because there is tiny little holes in that, but I'm going to try my best and see if I can get it on. Perfect, that's through. So I might just rest my button so it sits at the top here, or maybe I'll decide to tie it on somewhere a bit higher. I think I like to put it here, so I'm going to put this bit of wool through another hole in the button to secure it on there. So it is going to sit there. And then I have a piece left here, which is going to be to tie onto a branch wherever I decide to put it. From this point, it's all up to you. It's time to do some colouring and drawing. You might have noticed on mine that I did some colouring on the tassel itself with some, I had highlighters, but you might have markers that you can do that with. Then I drew my picture here. This is a tree and tree spirits. And I also drew on the heart, and you can do the same with the button. You can draw and colour in that as well. And I coloured in some of this wool too. And this one is another example where I've added some other things. So with the card that's in your pack, you could cut some shapes, and actually these are just sellotaped on to the wool, and you can sellotape those on as well. So there's lots of options here, and at this point you can just go off on your own journey and decide what way you're going to do yours. You might decide it's for a particular tree spirit, or a fairy, and you might like to do something like some people came up with the idea of writing their wish, or writing a poem or a story or a few words as well. So you have two sides to work away on. So yeah, it's time to just get started, and do share your work. It'd be lovely to see what people come up with and where they're hanging. It'd be lovely to see them out in the world. So enjoy your wish, your tree wish, and we'll see you again next time.